Okay, if you're in any way affiliated with the JPY, just watch this video. To understand what's taking place, we should try to understand that by Thursday and Friday, we're expecting to see BOJ or Bank of Japan having a meeting uh, affiliated with the rating or the monetary policy of the JPY, Japan, in simple terms. Should try to understand that the rates right now are around 0.5 and they're likely to be heading to 0.75%, which is kind of low according to the rest of the competition. But we should try to understand we are speaking of Japan, a country with a debt or with a debt to GDP ratio that's around 230 to 100. We should also try to understand this is a country that under a prime minister who's highly stimulating the economy, which is good for the economy because Japan has been finding itself in backlashes. It has been in an ideology where I would say like it lacked consistency of growth. Just the last 2-3, it was almost ended with a negative. With the such a kind of an ideology, you as a borrower of a JPY, of a JPY yen, keeps you in a panic mode in one or the other because when Japan starts hiking rates, well, it makes a lot of things to get complicated. We should also try to understand that the JPY raising rates, well, it's not way too friendly for someone who borrows their yen for other currencies, because we all know as a yen has a carry currency or a carry trade currency, because that's a currency that keeps its risk low, so that anyone can borrow it for conversion to any other currency, and so that they can, make more money. However, on Wednesday things changed up and left many investors or traders in a behavior or policy where one will try to indicate it has something that many will try to understand as something like a policy of waiting, where one tries to understand what's taking place or what's likely to be accumulating in simple terms. One of the main reasons was like the JPY was raising high and against the dollar, like it was gaining momentum, simple terms, and gaining momentum at scale levels, yes, has right now it's kind of low. Many of the investors or people who borrow their yen are just waiting for the final say from the Bank of Japan. However, it's highly potential. A rate hike is coming, and that's for sure. And it's coming just for one reason. Well, Japan is doing its level best to fight inflation because their inflation rate is around 3%. However, the government of Japan came out and claimed that Japan is likely to gain the 2% rate for the inflation, which is kind of a bizarre because it's far from that goal actually. It's way far from that goal. If you look at the debt Japan is facing, actually it's the largest of all time. However, this is great in fear for the global currencies or for the global economies, especially the US, because today Japan holds the biggest treasuries. See, Japan is stimulating the economy. It's good for its economy. However, the biggest fear is one. When it comes to paying back its debt, okay, the raising debt that's highly unapproachable as of right now. It's like a road of no return. That's where it triggers a lot of things, because Japan today can no longer sell its long-term bonds in several terms. It's facing a backlash in its bond, like in its bond sector. Like its borrowing costs are way high and highly high, to the extent that it will be depending today on short-term bonds in simple terms. Many people like you to go for the short-term bonds, but not for the 10-year bonds or the 30-year bonds, because there's a lot of fear factor and a lot of lack of confidence in such a kind of economy in simple terms. The expenditure, the way the government spends, and the way looking at the ratio of its debt and how the economy is performing, Japan is facing a backlash in the demography of aging factor, because the labor force indicates productivity is low. Labor force indicates that the economy is way slow to pay off its debt. Like the economy lacks the potential of showing it can overgrow its debt in simple terms. It indicates that the the JPY to be able to pay off its debt is highly low. However much, it has a policy of trying to keep its currency low or weak in simple terms, so that many investors can borrow its currency and maybe receive a deposit at the end of the day. However, this time around, things are kind of turning out in the opposite, because inflation is heading high as possible in simple terms. It's getting way, in simple terms, we'll say unacceptable according to its debt ratio. That's why you're seeing the panic in the JPY, or why we expect the Bank of Japan to be raising its rates high. You should also try to understand that Japan is facing a number of factors in after since. Japan is facing factors that we shouldn't always are actually underlooked, because beside the high debt, Japan itself is facing what I would be calling, in simple terms, the normalizing the monetary policies in simple terms. We should try to understand that if Japan hikes its interest rates, well, the borrowing costs for the Japan government also are gonna be hiking up. However, we should also try to understand that this leaves the JPY in a bizarre position. Leaves you in a behavior where you're not sure where the currency is heading to. It leaves a lot of questioning that if this happens, won't this trigger the selling off of the US treasuries? Because if this happens, it's gonna force a lot of investors to start selling off their crypto, their US stocks, because they borrow the JPY. Because that means when JPY gains momentum, it's gonna force anyone who borrowed the JPY from the who bought the JPY so that they invest in the stocks, crypto, to sell it off so that they can convert back to JPY, just to keep their money in for a better value in simple terms, or to avoid their debt growing longer. This is likely to interrupt markets. It may look like something small on surface, however, it's kind of huge. We saw this, I think, around 2023, 2024, when Japan kind of cracked in one or the other. So in one or the other, we're just waiting to see what the Bank of Japan says and how impactful it will be. That's all to be seen as we wait for the further results. Otherwise, thank you for watching. See you in the next one.